Went to a Bible bookstore and I found the book that Andrew has called You've Already Got It. And I read the back of the book and it just really sounded like my Christian walk up to that point. It felt like a dog, like he talks about the dog chasing its tail. And so I went ahead and bought the book and read it that whole weekend and devoured it multiple times. And at that point started to use some of the truths in the book. I went to his website and thank God that he offers teaching at no cost, because at that point I probably couldn't have gotten it otherwise. And so I downloaded 250 hours, all his teaching, to an iPod. And I was in sales at that point, and so I started listening to it, probably listened to 3 to 4 hours a day. And it just began to really transform my life.
And Tim would come home and he would just basically share with me what the Lord had shared with him during his drive and what the revelations that he got from Andrew's teaching.
At that point, God really started to deal with me about going to Bible college.
And I just said, God, if this is where you want us to go, then that peace is going to have to rule our heart.
I remember having a conversation with God because I had 5 children and a wife, and I had a business. And I remember I was walking outside one evening in the summer, and I said, man, God, if you don't come through and I move to Colorado, I'm going to sink like a rock in a pond. And I remember it so clearly. God said, well, Tim, if you stay here and I don't come through, you're going to sink like a rock in a pond. And so wouldn't it be better to just be obedient and do what I've told you to do? That so resonated inside my spirit that I told my family, I said, well, we're going to go to Bible college. And when we go, we're not going down there to suffer for Jesus, because Jesus suffered for us already, so we don't have to suffer.
You are still a God. You're still going to have to provide the same way. And we're not going to live below our means just because we're going to Bible school.
At that point, early 2007, I started speaking a confession. I started telling everybody I knew everywhere I went. I said, some way, somehow, when we get to Colorado, we're going to prosper more on accident than I've ever prospered on purpose here. And I don't know why, but some reason I totally, completely believed it. Load the truck up, moved to Colorado.
We get here, and my husband went back to selling insurance that he's done for years. And months went by, nothing happened. He went to another insurance company.
Nothing went right. I mean, nothing went right. Started living on credit cards because we weren't making any money.
God has brought us this far, given us more than what we were even imagining for, because His Word says He will do abundantly, exceedingly more than we can ask or imagine. But our thinking has to be big in order for Him to do grand things.
I said, well, I'm just going to start my own company. I figure, what can I lose? At least then I control my own reputation. So I started this company.
And God just opened the doors left and right, gave him connections, gave him favor. And we did our first job in February, and it wasn't through a loan of any kind, even though we tried to get a little bit of money to help us get started. But God is so faithful. We started with what we had.
And that was about the last 6 months of my schooling. I was going to graduate in May. And I made some good choices and I made some good decisions. But in 10 months, literally in 10 months, we did from scratch $2.3 million in business. And I really felt a lot like Andrew did when his mother, on her deathbed, put her finger in his face and said, Andrew, you're not this good. This is God, because there is no way that I could have done that. God spoke to me not long ago and said, the reason why this worked is because you held fast to your confession of faith.
But God has just shown us that your finances are the least amount of faith that it takes to believe. And during that whole year and a half, God's word that spoke to me was, He will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on Him. Why? Because I trust Him.
And I'm thankful for Andrew because he enabled me to get what I needed as far as the teaching without having the money to pay for it. He offered it. And if it wasn't for him doing that, and we wouldn't be where we were. And if we weren't obedient, oh my God, I think about it, I think, man, what if I wasn't obedient? What if I didn't come here? I mean, obviously, we're debt-free now. We've paid off all the debt. We've made more money than I've ever dreamed of making. And it's not even about the money. It's just at this point, the blessings of God have become so real in our life. It says in Deuteronomy 28:8 that the blessings of God are commanded upon us, and whatever we do will prosper. And at this point, Andrew has a book called Effortless Change, and the blessings of God are literally, they're effortless in our life at this point. We expect them, and they come, and it just happens. And it takes no effort on our place. It's just kind of a restful stance that we're in. And so I just thank God for his word. I thank God for Andrew and his unique way of teaching his word to where it actually produces tangible results.